for you.
Thank you.
Font
Good
of all
evening, everyone.
knowledge.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the regularly scheduled meeting of the Wareham School Committee. I'm Mike Flaherty, the Vice Chair. I'll be sitting in for Dr. Sylvia tonight, who had a previous engagement scheduled months in advance, actually. I'm going to open it up to the first agenda item, public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the committee? Thank you. Just state your name.
I am Missy Dekas. I just have a question. I've been to a few meetings. Have you ever entertained the idea of changing your public participation forum and maybe following a different path as far as, I sometimes come, I've seen your agenda posted. I go through it. If I have any questions, I certainly would come and use this time to address you. But what frustrates me is that when you as a committee address whatever item comes up later in the meeting, often it brings new questions that maybe I wouldn't have thought on my own, just doing my homework. And I sit there and I would sometimes like to raise my hand, stand up, ask a question, and we don't have that opportunity. So I wondered if you'd ever looked at something like the forum that the town meeting uses, limit people to a couple of minutes.
Actually, we have looked at that. In my first year on this committee, I totally identify with you and share your frustration from being on that side of the table. And I brought up trying to have such a format, where basically I was in the meetings that I attend for certain other things that I do at state and federal level. Usually there's a public participation like we have right now for non-agenda items. So people can, bring up, hey, a heads up to people and such. But during the agenda itself, the public isn't encouraged and welcome to speak on topics when new information comes up, and now you understand it as much as we do. I would love doing something like that, and I brought it up before this committee, and this committee has a history and a tradition of not doing that, and decided to pretty much stick with that. But
Well, I thought we've been through so many changes and we've all adapted well. Maybe your committee would entertain that idea and maybe adapt accordingly. And
I mean, if anyone wants to speak to it on the committee, feel free. I agree with you. Oh, Mr. Sweat.
I also identify completely with your frustration. I've never been part of a body or even been out in the audience of a body that operated that way. My guess is that they don't operate that way because it would make the meetings go much longer. Nevertheless, I do feel your frustration and would feel it even more if I didn't have the luxury of being on the committee. I think if we were to do it, we'd probably have to do it in a way that would at least put some limits on the amount of time that could be devoted to it. Maybe one question per agenda item from the audience, something like that. But it's certainly something worth considering, and I appreciate your input.
thank you.
Yeah. And I don't mind bringing it back up if there's renewed interest in something like that.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Good news. Anyone on the committee have any good news? Or do we want to do this first? Go ahead, Mr. Sweat.
Well, I admit that as a coach, I'm somewhat biased in favor of watching great coaching. But I was lucky enough to have the time to see the girls' volleyball team play the other night. Our student representative is a member of that varsity. They already have as many wins this year as they had for the entire season last year. But I was particularly impressed with the fact that we won not just because perhaps we didn't have better athletes, but they executed extremely well, and I think the coach, and I may be mispronouncing his name, but I believe it's Ben Catterley, did an outstanding job in preparing our students to, in this case, beat Seekonk, and he deserves recognition.
Very good. Mr. Lazarus, anything?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily good or bad, but I was at the Cape Cod Collaborative Board meeting, and everything down there is just peachy keen.
Thank you for the
And they're
report.
moving along as they usually do.
Thank you for that. I'll add, I'm sure the superintendent will bring it up, but I attended that open forum the other night for anyone interested. And what I heard there was what I heard before I went there regarding the reconfiguration of the elementary schools, and that parents were pleasantly surprised at how well it actually went. Mine parents had some anxiety about their kids going to Deacon's, and Deacon's parents had some anxiety about their kids going to Minot, but to their surprise, it went remarkably well. Aside from busing and meals, which we're going to hammer out, but the actual education and configuration of the schools that they were impressed with. Oh, the video. Yeah.
My name is Corey Grumpowitz. I'm one of the seniors over here at Wareham Veugen varsity football. This season, I believe we're really aiming to just keep on improving every single week. We're getting better and better. We're more cohesive as a group.
I'm Brianna Williams, the captain of the girls' soccer team. This season, I'm aiming to honestly just win a game. We haven't won in a while, so that's what I'm hoping to get a win. But everything's actually coming easy to us this season, so it's turning out well.
My name is Raylan Pina. My name is Peter Finn.
And you are?
I'm captain of the volleyball team. Our main goal is to make the playoffs. Come to our game to support the volleyball. Yes.
I'm Ian Butler, I'm the junior captain for the soccer team, and our goals for this year are to get better, be a stronger team, and we have a lot of young players this year.
I'm Owen Neely. I'm the captain of the varsity boys soccer team. And our goals for this season are to just play good soccer, hopefully get a couple wins under our belt, but definitely play good soccer. To be a Viking, it's to be a family. We stick together on the field. There's no fighting each other. You stick together, back each other up, and you're really defending each other out there. You're making sure that everyone else is, you're staying safe and making sure your team does well, not just yourself.
To be a Viking is about teamwork, and we're kind of a family here, and we put all your heart into the game and play.
Well, it means that you're a hard worker and a strong player. You're good for the team and always work hard.
Work hard, play tough, be respectful of your team.
Just be a proud person, proud of where you're from, and I feel like to be a Viking, it means to be a part of a big family.
Is that it? Yes. All right. Thank you, Jamie. That was great as always. I always look forward to that. Next agenda item is minutes of the meeting, September 3rd, 2014. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on them? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is update on transportation by Mr. Tatro. Thank you. Welcome.
Second first day of schools, which is when kindergarten starts. It's a whole new day in the transportation field. We've certainly had some struggles and some concerned parents who we've addressed, and there's certainly more concerns we still have to address. But we're into a routine now. Students are getting out in a much more timely fashion from all of the schools. I've been at all the schools at this point for dismissal. We're checking our head counts. Everything at this time, yes, there are some tight buses, and we have some ideas of what to do. We're getting official head counts this week. We have a few more bus stop issues to address, and we are and we will be addressed. But everything at this point is going as smooth as we could expect, consider the transitions that we've had to make. Parents have been very patient, and I appreciate that very much. There are a few issues. We're trying to get some bus monitors, so if anybody out there knows anyone who wants to be a bus monitor, send them on down to 48 Marion Road to fill out an application to be a bus monitor. We have positions available, so we are looking for that. But things are going fairly smoothly. We have addressed parent concerns. We have more to address, and we're out there getting kids home. At this point, I think within the time frame that we had asked them to be home. We had days where they were not, absolutely no doubt. At this point, we're pretty much meeting the time frames we had said. Buses are out of the schools by 3, and they're all clearing by 3:40.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Tatro? Mr. Sweat?
Just so I understand what you mean by all clear by 3:40. In other words, all students have been dropped off by 3:40? Is that what that means?
That is correct.
Okay.
That does not mean buses are off the road. It means the last student is exiting the bus sometime around 3:40.
And so that it's a 40-minute maximum to get kids home. Is that what you're saying?
On the 13th day of school, that is the case, correct. And we did have days where it was over an hour, and that absolutely happened, and we worked it and we've tweaked it. And at this point, yes, the maximum student, as of today, all buses cleared at 3:40. Last bus rolled out of Deacon's at, I think, 3:03 today, and we were clear at 3:40.
Could you characterize the top 3 or 4 kinds of changes that you've had to make in order to accommodate students, parents, administrators, et cetera, just to make things run smoother? What kinds of changes have you had to make?
We've had to make a number of rerouting situations where we've had to go back into some of the neighborhoods we initially weren't. And there are going to be some others that we're going to end up going back into as well once we get some timings down.
So routes have changed. That's the first one.
Routes have changed, and we
Okay.
do update the website, thanks to Jamie, very quickly when we do make changes like that. So we have made route adjustments.
Okay.
We've
Now, when you
not-
say route adjustments, is that the same as adding stops?
No, that was my next, no, that means.
Okay.
Well, yes, it is adding stops. We're going back into neighborhoods.
Okay.
Some of the neighborhoods, the larger neighborhoods where they were congregating on main roads, and again, we have other changes coming as well. We've moved them back in, maybe not as far into the neighborhood as we were before, but back into the neighborhood. We have added stops as well. And meaning, we haven't adjusted the route at all, but we've added stops in a closer proximity to a group of children.
Okay.
So we've done that as well. And a significant change is how we've done dismissal at some of the schools. We've got them to run more smoothly. We've tried to tweak the actual boarding or the loading process at the schools, and that's made a significant impact and helped us out.
Great. Thank you.
All set, Mr. Lazarus?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tatro, for being here and for updating us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The next 2 items are request for pilot club at Wareham High School and high school SAT AP report. I'm going to ask if the committee doesn't mind to hold off on those until Mr. Palladino gets here, which he'll be here momentarily, and move on to the next item. Is that okay, Mr. Lazarus?
Fine with me.
Okay. Val? Okay?
What?
If we hold off on those 2 items, okay, until Scott gets here. All right, so.
Go right ahead.
So the next item would be discussion of timeline for superintendent's evaluation. As you may or may not remember from the previous, well, I'm sure the committee remembers, from the previous discussions on this, we had a timeline for doing the superintendent's evaluation, but it was based largely on when we got the MCAS results, and we were going to have a meeting on that, to go over that, so we could include it as part of her evaluation. But DESE is still keeping them embargoed, and I'm hearing that maybe Friday, or it should be Friday, that they're released. But that throws our whole schedule out, because we were supposed to discuss that tonight, and we need to evaluate the superintendent by October 1st. So I'm thinking maybe, I discussed it briefly with Dr. Sylvia, and he suggested maybe doing a workshop. Once we get those. I'd like to hear some thoughts on that.
I'm not, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm not
So, yeah, no.
necessarily concerned about what the MCAS scores are going to be in having to do with the evaluation process. I would just as soon keep our timeline the way it is.
Bring that up. Are you done
Am I done?
with your comments? Sorry.
Yeah.
I want to move on to Jeff if you were done with your
Oh,
comments.
well,
Thank-
far be it for me to interfere.
No, I didn't, I don't mean to be rude, I just want to know if you're done with your comments. Thank you.
That's what I get for sitting at the end of the table.
Both sides. Go ahead, Mr. Sweat.
Since any impact of the evaluation would obviously be retroactive, I don't think, unless the superintendent feels otherwise, delaying everything a couple of weeks would be a problem, and that would be my preference. I would also be willing to attend a workshop if that was something that the superintendent and other people wanted to do. But I think the real villain, so to speak, here is the state's insistence on embargoing data that they've had for months. So I don't want to be held hostage by that, and for that reason, I would be more than willing to either delay everything until the next school committee meeting, meaning pushing everything off a couple of weeks, or having a workshop. I'm amenable to either solution.
I would agree with you about pushing everything off, but I think the problem is that we have a set date in her contract of October 1st to evaluate her. So I don't know if we have to stick with that.
I think I would be willing to move it.
The superintendent says she'd be willing to move it.
I appreciate that.
Then if everyone's okay, if there's consensus that we should do that, then I think that we should.
I'm not sure we've got consensus, but I would be willing.
I would too, and it sounds like the superintendent would. And you be all right with that?
I'm not, as I said, I'm not sure that the MCAS scores are necessarily that integral a part of the evaluation process, given the tool that we're using. There's only one piece of it that talks about data. And, I mean, if everybody's happy with moving this 2 weeks, move it 2 weeks. I'm just not sure that it's all that important to move it 2 weeks.
Right.
And I don't know that, regardless of what the scores are, it's going to change what we're going to do. On the other hand, if you feel more comfortable with it, far be it from me to stand in your way.
Okay. I'm going to recommend to Cliff that we push it off to the 2 weeks, next meeting.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm looking at the actual document, and I wonder if we want to have some specificity about exactly how the dates will change.
All right, if we do that, do you think it would be appropriate to have a vote?
You may want to vote it because it was voted.
Okay.
You're going to change it. You
Okay.
may want to make an amendment.
Sure. So what would be the next school committee meeting after October 1st?
It's 2 weeks.
I can find that fairly quickly. It's probably the
15th.
15th, but I would need to verify that.
Yeah, it's October 15th.
It is on the 15th? Okay.
I've got the calendar here.
So in the motion,
October is the 1st and the 15th.
okay,
The
thank you.
15th is correct.
Yeah.
So should we have a motion and be specific on every date, from this point forward?
Well, the last date on the document would change from October 1st to October 15th.
Correct.
the penultimate date, and would have to change, could change to the 13th, for example. Yes, the 13th of October instead of September 29th.
Correct.
And then the 7th, October 7th would be the date for members submitting the evaluation forms to the committee chair, and the first date has already passed.
Yes.
And it's already been done, so that doesn't need to change. So if you're looking for a vote, we would be amending this document to reflect those 3 changes to the dates.
Does that work for you, Michelle, as a motion?
September 23rd went to what date?
October 7th?
October 7th, correct.
Yep. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, I see that Mr. Palladino has entered the room. Where'd he go? There he is. These are for reading, not for distance. We held the pilot club and the SATs, so the pilot club should go first.
Appreciate you fitting me in here. My son had open house, and I see without Dr. Sylvia, we're moving right along. Coincidence? I'm not sure. But I want to introduce Zaria Lima, and William Jenkins is here. William can come on up, and he is from the Kiwanis Club, and we're going to present, we hope to have a pilot key club, and we're going to have, Zaria will do most of the presenting, but I'm going to grab a seat for Bill. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Zaria Lima, and I'm currently a junior. Mr. Palladino has presented me with the opportunity of starting a new club called the Key Club. It's the high school level of the Kiwanis Club. The first Key Club was created in Sacramento High School in 1925. It's the largest high school service leadership organization in the world. Key Club teaches students about service learning, enriching school culture, and developing the passion to do selfless devotion to help one's community. This club is open to all grade levels and to any student that is passionate about helping out in their community. My advisor, Stephanie Santos, and I will be holding a brief interest meeting to anyone that is interested in joining. At this time, I currently have 20 students signed up. We are also thinking about joining forces with the Junior and National Honor Society because we know these students need community service hours. I am happy to have this opportunity to bring the Key Club to Wareham High School and encourage other students to help out in their community.
Certainly. We'll entertain any questions you may have.
Anyone on the committee? Mr. Sweat?
Thank you for being here. You're a great representative of the high school. You mentioned the National Honor Society, which is very oriented towards the community.
Correct.
I think there's another club, and I don't pretend to have any more familiarity with it other than some of the kids on the tennis team talk about being part of the Code Club.
Correct. I actually am scheduling a meeting to talk to the advisor, Ms. Franklin, about what they do about community service and how we can kind of sort of join forces, but not do the same things. So we're not touching on the same community service ideas.
That was my concern, that I wouldn't want one club to sort of steal from another club in terms of membership.
Right.
So redundancy can actually, it might have some positive impact because it might get more people involved in the community, but it also could have some negative impact. So you share my concern, and you're trying to prevent it from being a negative, it sounds like.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Mr. Lazarus, anything?
I know that Key Club is a very popular organization, and I know when my sons went to Brockton High, it's a very, very active organization. I'm all in favor of it.
I too am in favor of it. I just love it when anyone takes initiative and wants to do something like this and takes the bull by the horns and just does it. So, and I'm glad that Mr. Sweat brought up this other club and the concerns, and it sounds like you do have that, you know, you're mindful of that. So, no, would it cost the school anything?
A pilot club would just cost for the advisor for the first year. It's a small stipend that's involved, and that would be it.
Okay.
Correct, and the Kiwanis Club would pay for the chartering that's required to be part of the Kiwanis Club and the Key Club. And beyond that, you know, this is just taking another step towards the community service piece, which we would like to eventually make as a graduation requirement.
Thank you. Do we need a vote? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve a pilot year for the Key Club at Wareham High School.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, great.
And moving on to the SAT AP report.
Excellent. So I'm going to call up Debbie Freitas, who is our testing coordinator as well. And certainly, as you're aware, we're going to embark on quite a few more standardized tests at the Wareham High School. And Debbie is the testing coordinator, and she does a great job for us at the high school to make sure that everything is organized and that the massive amount of rooms and coverage that is needed, it's seamless when we do administer whatever the exam may be, whether it's an AP exam, whether it's PSAT exams, when we do half the school takes the PSAT exams, or obviously MCAS and soon to be PARC, although we had a chance to do a little pilot this year with the PARC. So I'm gonna, while this is warming up here, I'm gonna just start with the SAT, or actually the AP results. We've given you, and I'll project it up here momentarily, I think, the 5 years worth of data on all of the exams, and we have also given you the section average for us and the Massachusetts average for all of the students that take the AP exam in Massachusetts. So the first one is a Studio Art 2D design, and this is something that is a portfolio. And I know we had one of our teachers, Ms. Dion, here, I believe was in the spring, and she talked a little bit about that. But you can see that we had 5 students this past year that participated in this, and the average score was a 2.4. We also have biology, which we did have to put on hiatus in 2012, but we were able to bring it back in 2013 and 14, and you can see the score has moved up to a 2.33. Next is our calculus AB, which unfortunately took a little bit of a dip, quite a dip, and that's a 1.22. Chemistry was a first-year course that we offered this year. We've been trying to get that off the ground for some time, and the infrastructure that's required to coordinate the class and to be able to have not just the books but the supplies that are needed. It was cost prohibitive for many years, but now with this MIMSI grant, we were able to get that off the ground, and the score started off at a 1.75, but we're very optimistic with the group that's in there this year. The English language composition, I want to point your attention to 37 students, which is the most we've had in as long as I can remember, and the total section average was a 2.3. Yeah, if you can, it still seems to be warming up. English literature composition, we had 31 students in this, also a very high number. I think we had high 30s in 2011 and 2009. And 2.32 is our average. The environmental science, we had 2.2, that's a third-year program that we started. And we have macro and microeconomics, which are the same students. They are required to take 2 exams, and you can see the macro was a 2.0 and the micro was a 3.13. U.S. history, 3.25, and then statistics, 1.69. So we came to you last year and talked about the participation. The big piece with the MIMSI grant was to increase participation. And I'm really excited that we increased our participation in AP courses by 34%. Now, that may not seem like a large number, but when you're running classes that are very low in size and people are questioning why you're running them, I'm happy to say we increased participation by 34%. Also, the big piece with the MIMSI grant is qualifying scores. I'm very excited that we increased our qualifying scores from 40 qualifying scores in 2013 to 57 in 2014. And just to refresh everyone's memory, a qualifying score is a score of 3 or above. So those are some numbers that we're excited about, and we anticipate we're already projected to hit those marks as far as participation this year, and we hope to continue to do that. We have a nice pipeline coming through with the 8th graders that are now in the dual enrollment program. We anticipate some of those students will start taking AP courses as early as their sophomore year. So we're very excited about the AP programs. As you've heard me say, we need to challenge the high-end students, and we're very excited to be doing that between the AP classes, the dual enrollment for the 8th graders, and the dual enrollment that we have with Bridgewater State for the upperclassmen. Certainly, I'll pause here and take any questions on the AP scores.
Anyone from the committee? Mr. Sweat?
Thank you.
Could I have the,
For the SAT more than I need for this, yeah. So that's perfect.
Mr. Palladino, could I have the numerator and the denominator for the passing and total people involved for the last 2 years again? I seem to remember last year there were 40-something passing.
When you say passing,
Qualified.
qualifying, sure, let me get you that. Wow, you've got a good memory. It was 40 exactly.
And the total participation was how many?
We had 122 tests taken.
Okay, so 40 out of 122.
I'm sorry, 112, excuse me.
112. So, okay. So, a little less than a third, excuse me, a little more than a third.
Correct.
Were qualified. And I seem to remember the number that passed was 57, is that correct, this year?
You're right on the money.
And what was the denominator for that?
150.
150. So the percentage that are actually qualifying has essentially been flat. Would you agree with that?
I'd have to do the math, but I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's maybe slightly down, but it's essentially flat.
But more students that previously wouldn't have qualified to take AP courses are now being allowed to take AP courses and enhance their transcripts for applying to college. And also, I mean, you've heard the studies as far as taking one AP class, the percentage of those students that graduate from college within 5 years. So they're experiencing college-level courses that in years past, because of the prerequisites, they wouldn't have been able to do that.
Now, there was a second presentation that we received from the superintendent. Are you going to be showing that, or is that just for our private consumption?
Private.
I'm not sure, I'm aware, there was an email that I
We
received
sent
this
it to you.
afternoon. If that, I'm not ready to say anything about that because quite frankly, I've been in meetings all afternoon and
Well,
haven't really
it wasn't
reviewed
even clear that it was supposed to be made available to the public yet, another embargoed set of data, which is always annoying, to say the least. But, okay. I find it difficult to be pleased with these data. I don't see a positive trend other than 112 to 150. I am particularly concerned about math, and while I don't expect too much specificity this evening with respect to what your plans are to improve this, these numbers are disturbing. Is there anything more you'd like to say about raising the bar.
So and I know Debbie has a few things to add, but we've made some adjustments in the instruction in math, and we're in our second full year with the, I don't want to push everything off on the MIMSI, but we're in our second full year of the MIMSI. Our teachers are receiving tons of professional development, so I anticipate moving forward, you'll be pleasantly surprised with these scores.
I look forward to that.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I'd like to add is that you're looking at proportions. And when we are looking at this data, and I know that as many college recruiters are looking at this, we're talking about people that are accepting our students into colleges. We're talking about 57 students that received qualifying scores. We wouldn't have those numbers had we not pushed these kids into taking the challenge to take these courses. And I am still excited. I understand that you are not, but I would like to convince you that these numbers are a positive trend. We have that many more students. We have 17 more students that qualify for college-level courses. We have more students that are taking AP classes that are being exposed to more challenging work, to college-level work. Without this grant, without changing the way that we enroll students in these classes, because of the grant, we would have been, a lot of these students would miss this opportunity to take these challenging courses.
I'm fortunate that I get to interact with, as Mr. Palladino knows well, with a lot of students who take a lot of AP courses. They tell me somewhat of a different story about the AP experience. And one of the things you may want to look at is the correlation between the grades they receive from their teachers in these AP classes and the scores they achieve on the AP exams. I would suggest to you that there's almost no correlation, and that's disturbing.
I think that you would find that in other schools as well.
I'm not concerned about other schools.
And I think if I can, the important thing to remember is that we require every student who takes the course to take the exam. And some of my colleagues in the South Coast Conference do not require that. It's optional. So, sometimes these numbers do get skewed when you're looking at averages. It's very similar to, ironically, the SATs, which I'll be presenting on in a few minutes, where schools are very selective with who takes the exams.
But wouldn't you agree that if a student gets an A in a course and gets a 1 on the exam, that something's wrong?
I'll give you the polar opposite. We've got students that fail English 10 and are proficient or score even higher in the MCAS. So
that's a great point. Excuse me for interrupting,
Sure.
but that's a great point, because we're moving away from MCAS to PARC.
Correct.
And we have already heard from our student representative and others that the difference is huge. And AP is much closer to PARC than it is to MCAS.
That's
and
fair.
that's what makes me really concerned
Sure.
about this transition from MCAS to PARC.
Sure. And that's why we're getting ahead of the game. That's why we're starting this year with the PARC.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I think what we're really trying to do with Dr. Panarisi, Dr. Schwab, Mr. Palladino, Mrs. Freitas, is to look at what the scores are, to look at what the data tells us, then to look at what we're doing. And part of that is unpacking what we are doing. How do we increase the rigor? How do we address the deficits that we know we need to address? And this is truly a work in progress. We've been very pleased with the data, the quality of data that we've been able to look at. And because of that, we've been able to start pinpointing some of the areas that we know we need to focus on. This is a work in progress. We have regular meetings with the department chairs. We have regular meetings with the various people in central office, with the building folks, on how do we look at what we're doing, how do we increase rigor, and how do we provide opportunities for our students. And those are all questions that are being actively asked actively explored, and I do believe that next year you will see a marked difference. We certainly do expect to increase rigor, and we will be meeting the needs of our students. So it is a work in progress, and we're continuing.
Go ahead, Mr. Lazarus.
Without turning this into a full-blown debate, I think that I might be able to shed a little light on why a student could get an A in a course and a 1 on an exam. For all the years I was at the high school, I taught seniors. I had everything from the lowest to the highest academically, in my honors classes especially. A lot of students, especially at the upper level, take AP classes because their friends take an AP class, and they travel together from this class to that class, to my class, to somebody else's class. They may take one of these courses with absolutely no interest in the exam, none. And they are taking the exam merely because they have to. The lack of interest in the exam is going to cause a lower score. Now, you can take what I'm saying and say, you're full of baloney, that doesn't exist. Trust me when I tell you it does. That people take, some of the students take these courses because their friends take them, and they do well in them. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do well in the exam for a number of reasons, not the least of which some of them just don't care about the exam.
Mrs. Veugen?
First of all, I'm sorry that I'm late. I had a meeting in New Bedford that kept me there until 7. I tried to get here as soon as I can, so I apologize to the committee and also to the presenters today. When I think that, you know, we've been looking at these scores, and yes, do I see an increase in participation? That is great. We know that AP courses are what will get a student closer to college readiness, and that's what the test is there for. But I do have the same concern about rigor that is expressed on this committee today, and I can understand that there are several reasons why a student's lack of interest, many other reasons, but my concern is that we, the state, will mark us as level 3 because of our MCAS scores.
Sure.
For AP, it's around college readiness, and same thing with MCAS going to Park. My concern is that we continue to have what we might think is the right instructor, and we need improvements in instructor, but the test year after year after year proves that we're not at the level that we should be to be able to get our students, whether they're taking it because they want to or not, but it's just not there. And so one way, at least for this, just so we continue to have that conversation around what our students are actually getting for a grade in the class, along with how they're doing on the AP exam, is if we could actually add that as a data point on here. So for every single time, so then we're constantly looking at it. So every single time that we're taking a look for the section where we have 12 students, the section average is 3, I'm looking at U.S. history, 3.25, and the Massachusetts average is 3.35, actually saying what the average grade point average is in that class also. Just so we can use that as another data point. Might be useful, might not, but I think that it's important to keep having that conversation. I know that Jeff's brought it up every single time we've reviewed the AP courses. I'm just kind of getting on board with that I just am concerned about if there is a student that's getting a high grade in that class, but then they're getting a low score. And then also we are hearing that from these same students that they don't feel ready for college, then really what is that benefit to them by taking AP courses?
If I could get some clarification, we're hearing from students that they're not ready. Is that in regards to, I'm just, so I
Sure.
understand.
So some of the students, when they come back or have been, so I have friends that have college friends that have come back where they have basically said they've either had to take remedial or they don't feel as prepared.
Yeah, I just think, if we're going to talking about the tennis team and informal surveys, certainly I'd want to get some data on that, as far as if we're going to survey people, because I think you talk to different factions and different people have different experiences and ideas. We came to you folks a year ago in regards to the MIMSI grant and said, this is what we're going to do. We could bring the scores up. We could be selective. Let's take this U.S. history. Let's take the 2 and the 1 off. And, we've got, probably a 3.6, 3.7. But the philosophy is, to get more kids involved, to get them so they are college ready. I mean, certainly, don't get me wrong. We've got work to do. I'm not saying that, we're going to settle for this. I'm as competitive as anyone. We're going to work hard. But I think if the philosophy is changing and it's all about the average, please let me know, because we'll go back to being selective and we'll cut these classes off. Instead of 30 or high 20s in the ELA classes, we can do that. But I want to give these kids the experience. We're going to take a little bit on the average, the section average, but to me, I'll do that so that a kid can be successful in college. These are freshman college courses that these kids are taking, and it's the same, as you all know, whether they're here, California, or any point in between. It's the same curriculum. And, I don't want to be selective. And the same thing with SAT. We push kids to take the SAT starting as juniors. And I don't want to, again, my colleagues, some of them are very selective with who they allow to take courses and who they allow to take the SAT. I want to push kids. I want to challenge kids. And you know what? If they fall and they score a 1, they've still been acclimated to a college level course. Yes, they didn't succeed with a 3 or a 4, but they're going to be already at a higher level than a student who's taking an honors class for that next step.
And I understand your point, and I think that I would also want data points, true data points that we're looking at when it comes to college. I think we talk about that a couple times here about how can we continue to find out what our students are doing once they leave our walls. I don't want you to lower the bar or go along with some of your colleagues. That's not the point whatsoever. I'm just saying, how can we continue to measure our AP scores against other data points when we're looking at the data?
I think part of what we're looking at is the quality, the rigor, and how do we meet the needs of our students. And so those are all conversations that we're having internally with various personnel in our school system. The number one is providing students opportunities, quality opportunities, providing students rigor. And part of what we're also doing is it meeting the needs of our students? And when we look at the scores and when we look at historical trends, then we're asking ourselves, are we meeting the needs of our students? And then we're making some internal adjustments, and that's where we're at now. We're making the internal adjustments to ensure that our students are given every possible opportunity that they deserve. And, I certainly appreciate providing opportunities for students, and I would not want to limit just to get our scores up. And I don't think anybody in this committee would either.
Mr. Chair, I just had one more question.
Go ahead.
Thanks. And I don't, this is actually directed to the superintendent, that there are districts that are actually offering AP classes in the middle school or junior high level. Are there any talks or discussions about expanding our program into the lower grades?
Oh, now yes, we would love to do that, not only into the junior high, but we'd also like to move it to the elementary. And we're looking at various options and having these conversations, and I know that that's the true passion of our new director of curriculum, to provide opportunities. So we'll be coming to you and sharing some information in the very near future about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, to Mel's point, I don't think that you're full of baloney. I could totally see that kids following other kids just based on being friends and following to different classes. That doesn't happen at just the senior level. I mean, I see it at the junior high level. So no, I could definitely see that impacting the scores based on what you just said. So I agree with you. And with regard to these anecdotal reports of students, having certain college experiences that differ from, they're not ready for college or whatever. I think I'm correct in that since I've been here, every student rep at that chair has said that when they've gone to the dual enrollment at Bridgewater, that they were overly prepared, that it was boring when they went there because they were so prepared. So it's always a mixed bag when you're talking about anecdotal stuff. But whenever we discuss this, it seems that sometimes people are like, you question whether or not we should continue with certain parts of the AP program. And I wonder, these teachers, what else would they be doing if they weren't doing AP?
They'd be teaching.
Right.
I mean, we would, trust me, there are certain periods where right now, period 2 in particular, I just was alerted to today, there is not one single open elective. So I would say that they would be teaching some type of an elective would be the answer to that. But right, or a college prep or honors course. There would be, trust me, there's a need where we've got U.S. history classes that are in the 30 range right now. So there would be a need. We would find a spot to try and soften the enrollment in certain courses.
I guess that would be your call, obviously, as to whether they'd be better utilized somewhere else if that's if that's worth doing. But no, I mean, yeah, I'm disappointed at the proportions, the percentages. I wish it was better. But all in all, I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, kids get into it what they put into it. I mean, I'm sure you know the ones that are going to do well and the ones that need more help, and that's just how it is. And obviously that's because, I mean, the flat progress and whatever. That's just that's to me, that's definitely because we require everyone to take the test, and I'm glad that we do, and I'm glad that you went on about all the other things that are going on at the high school that stress the rigor and such, to the point where I'd like to hear your feedback on the 8th graders doing the dual enrollment, because I'm getting feedback that it might be too rigorous for them, that it's kind of an adjustment for them.
Well, that's not the feedback that we're getting. To the contrary.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the feedback that we're getting is they're acclimating so quickly that they're actually pushing the 9th graders in the class to excel. So, like you said earlier, it depends on who you speak to.
It's a mixed bag, yeah.
There's been no formal survey, but the kids that I've spoken with and the teachers I've spoken with, and Ms. Freitas has spoken with, the kids are excelling.
Okay.
There's some kids that, I saw today, a few kids after school, which was great to see. There's some kids that are having to work for it, but overall, and it's still early too, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But it's been a good transition, and we've got some good reports back, but we'll know in a few weeks when grades come out.
Yeah, I think it was more the shock with the homework. They weren't used to getting that much homework, which I think is a good thing, frankly.
Right, and the classes meet every other day, so you figure the homework's probably twice what a traditional 7-period schedule would allow for in a high school setting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thank you for the report, and it's always really awkward when we discuss the AP for some reason, but I mean, I'm glad that our students have this opportunity and they're encouraged. And they're required to take the test.
We'll continue to do it. Thank you. So we'll move on to the SAT, and I do have some good news. I know the data wasn't verified for 2013-14, but earlier this week we did receive verification, so I can share it with you, and certainly I can email it to Michelle so you have the scores for 13-14. So I'll go over those, and I have them up behind me as well. And so we'll start with the critical reading scores for 2013-14. The average was 465, and you can see the state was 516. We still haven't been able to get the state public data, which I do like to compare to, and the national is 497. Critical writing scores, we were at a 462, the state is 509, and the national is 487. And the math score is 460, state is 531, and the national is 513. We had about 2% more students taking the SAT test this year as compared to last year based on enrollment. And we are excited about this year's scores because we do have, this will be the second year of our SAT prep class. So all of the students that are now seniors that will be taking the exam were required to take the SAT prep, which is a junior requirement. And we're also excited about the fact that we have required sophomores and juniors to take the PSAT exam. So basically the juniors right now we'll take it for a second year. So we should see some dividends to that in another, well, partly next year, but more importantly in 2 years, we'll see the dividends from that as well. So those are the 3 tests. I certainly would entertain any questions that you may have.
Anyone on the committee?
Could you put the first 2 slides back up again? Please?
Absolutely. This was the first one.
465,
Correct.
516, and
497 down the
497.
bottom.
And the next one, please.
Sure. 462,
62,
509,
509,
and 487 on the bottom.
487.
And the last one.
I got
got
that
the
one.
last one,
Thank you. Hard not to look at the math and see the state bumped up slightly. The national scores were essentially flat, down 1 point, and we've got the lowest number in 6 years.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the committee? Does that conclude the
That's
presentation?
the presentation, 3 tests.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the report on school nutrition.
Want to sit at the table? Thanks. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
Deborah Perry.
Nice to see you again.
Thanks. As you know, we're CEP, which means every student is getting breakfast and lunch at no charge. And it's working out very well. We're extremely busy. We are now serving close to 400 breakfasts at the elementary schools, at each elementary school, as well as middle school. I think she's high 300s. High school, it's not quite as popular, but at least it's a lot higher than it was last year. 187 she hit today, so that's the highest it's been in a long time. Lunches overall for the last couple of weeks have, and I'm comparing to last year, same first 2 weeks of school, we've increased our lunches by 11%. And breakfast, the first week, in comparison to last year, rose 58%, I think, or 57%, and the second week was 48%. So I think that'll just continue to keep rising. So it's a good thing. Reimbursement, I believe that's another thing, is with the CEP, we are qualified at 51% of our population is free and reduced, which means I have to download and the direct certified children, and this year our total number was 1,402 that are automatically considered direct certified, which means families that are on food stamps, Medicaid, SNAP program, everything. So they're all included. So for CEP for reimbursement, we receive, how the state figures it out is that 81.6%, or no, 81.4% of our reimbursement will be at the free rate of what the state provides. 18.6% of our meals will be paid at the paid rate. So And I do have the updated rates. For reimbursement, the paid rate will be 39.75, cents. And free lunches reimbursement is $3.0975, 3.0975. Breakfast that we receive, because we are considered a severe need school, will be $1.93. So hopefully that will make our budget look a lot better this year. Any questions?
Anyone on the committee have any questions? Ms. Veugen?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I want to tell you that a friend of mine, son, has never eaten school lunch whatsoever. Always said, Mom, you have to make it, you have to make it. First day at middle school, went, his mom made his lunch, came back and said, I never want you to make me lunch again. Has been eating school lunch at the middle school ever since. So that, to me, was a huge compliment. And, at the middle school, all the different choices that are available. So I have just, that one piece of feedback that I wanted to give you. The one concern that I have, and I think that if anybody has been reading, or the superintendent has probably maybe received emails about it, it's just the concern that because of the number of students that you're serving now, that there are some students that might not have enough time to eat. Can you tell me if you're seeing that trend, or that if you have heard any concerns, and if so, are you addressing them?
I haven't seen that yet. As far as I know, the elementary students are eating in their classroom. So I haven't heard any complaints, but they are able to get their breakfast eaten in time. Middle school is the same thing.
And this is for lunch, sorry.
Oh, for lunch, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
not for breakfast, no, for lunch, that there are students, did I say breakfast? Sorry.
Yeah.
That students that are in line for lunch, that are buying their lunch, or not buying, but they're receiving the school lunch that they're having, because of the time frame, having a hard time once they get through the line, able to eat everything and then.
Well, I personally have been at the high school for the last couple of weeks because we've been shorthanded, and I know that we've been getting those students through the line, and they're actually getting to sit down and enjoy that meal with plenty of time before the bell. So I know that we've worked real hard at that, because I know that was one of our bigger complaints at the high school, is that the waiting line was just too long. I don't know about the middle school.
Or the elementary?
Or the elementary, but I haven't heard anything. So Mary can tell us about the middle.
Mary, I'm at the middle school, and our lines are very long. And the principal we're working on it. We're trying to open up more lines, speeding it up. We're trying to get more personnel to work there. So it is something that, but they are being allowed to stay there and eat, just so you do know that whoever is in charge of the lunches does see the children coming through late. There are just few that, they don't seem to have the time, but we are definitely working on that. We're feeding a lot of children. We're very busy, but we're working on it, and if it is a concern, I think that it's being addressed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We also brought you some of the lunches that we actually offer. We brought you the cold lunches, because I didn't think the hot would stay long enough. But this is what the children actually get to pick. And they go through a salad line, which they get to pick whatever vegetables they want on their salads, meats, anything. They also tend to eat a lot of wraps. So there's also wraps up there. And they get to pick whatever they want. There could be buffalo chicken and lettuce and tomato and onions and pickles and
bread,
olives, everything. There's quite a selection for that. We also brought the fruits that we have. We have fresh fruit. We have canned fruit. We have now purchasing unsweetened applesauce in cups for the kids to be able to take. And as far as vegetables go, we have, and these are the things that are available usually on a daily basis. We have broccoli salad. There is black bean and corn salsa. There is coleslaw. There is carrots. we have to make all of these things available to the children all the time because they have to have all their colors, according to the state. So we are trying to comply and make sure they have everything. So we brought you sandwiches, a couple salads to try, to see, because this is exactly what they get.
Hold on, what's that?
I just want to say something.
Yeah, no, before, we'd be happy to check that out in a moment. But I want to make sure that the committee has a full chance to ask questions and stuff. I think Ms. Shaver
I know, I
has
wouldn't have dinner before I came.
I know.
You know, well, I'd like you to introduce the managers.
Okay. This is Christine LaPerriere. She is the manager at the Wareham High School. Then we have Sheila Pierce. She is the manager at the J.W. Deacon School. Andrea Culp is our manager at the Minor Forest School. And Mary Cleaver is the manager at the Wareham Middle School.
Okay.
Welcome.
And it is a busy place in the cafeterias. It's fun to walk in, you know, everybody's working very hard. They're having a good time, so we appreciate all your hard work. And I just wanted to let you know, because, you know, when you hear the percentage, that's a little bit, you think, wow, that's a lot of an increase. But we have served 4,444 more breakfast in 2 weeks than we did in a 2-week period last year. So 4,000 more meals have gone out, and that's because of the hard work. We do know that there's some long lines. We're working on that. We just appreciate people's flexibility, and if you know anybody that would like to work in the cafeteria, please come and get an application. But we do appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Sorry. I wish I could. I'm sorry. I feel your pain. Does anyone else on the committee have any questions? Mr. Sweat?
Thank you for being here. I am excited to hear about all the changes. By the way, we try to be an acronym-free zone here. You referred to CEP, CNP?
Yes, sorry. Community eligibility participation.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
So those are districts that have been designated as allowed to offer free meals to all their students.
Meals at no charge.
Yes.
They're not considered free because somebody's paying for it. They're actually considered a meal that we're providing for the students at no charge.
Yes. You passed your economics test. Thank you. Now, my question is one for you and one for Mr. McMillan, who's, you know, pretending to be working hard back there, but I know he's listening. One is I'm sure you're not ready, but at some point, perhaps in a month or two, there's going to be some really interesting data, before and after data, that I, for one, and I suspect other members of this committee would love to have some kind of data report that shows what it was like last year and what it's like at the end of the first 2 or 3 months. Because it sounds like it's dramatically different. And I would love to see some concrete numbers about that. My second question, well, that was more a comment than a question, but my question is, what is I mean, on the one hand, you don't have to be taking money and taking names anymore because they're at no charge to the students. But it sounds like operationally it has been significantly different. Could you describe how just to run the food service for any given school, what is the biggest change that this being a part of the CEP has represented?
Well, they're making a lot more meals per day and getting them ready in time for these students to have it, and that's taking a lot of work for them and the
So
staff
a
that's
lot
there.
more meals. Have you hired more staff to do that?
We're trying.
You're trying. The bottom line is you need more staff to do it.
But not everybody wants to work.
And obviously hiring more staff has an impact on the overall economics of what you're doing. And do you have a sense of how many people you can hire and still break even? I mean, do you know those kinds of things?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Michael keeps asking me every day, but I haven't been able to be free long enough to sit at my desk and do some of that because I have been trying to be at the schools to help 3 new managers and so that they don't quit, and also help out to help them get meals, especially like at the high school. I've been over there ringing registers and doing whatever I can to help them so we can get through this period. I have a few subs on the way, hopefully, that they're going through the process, you know, the query check and whatnot needs to be done so that we can at least put them in place until we know exactly what we can do.
Well, as much
financially.
as I'm thrilled that we can make sure that children don't go hungry, which has implications not only for their health but also for their ability to focus in their classroom, I really look forward to getting an initial report because we can't afford a negative surprise.
That's right.
As we did at the end of last year. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the committee? Actually, I had some last-minute questions or points. Now, if a student brings their own lunch in and they don't bring a drink, so let's say they want to go through the line and get a milk, are they counted as a full meal? No. Do they have to
That
pay?
is considered a la carte.
Do they have to pay for that milk?
Yes, they do.
Okay, gotcha. And as you know, we've heard at length from you folks about in the past about kids that were in arrears because they didn't pay. You know, they would get they were allowed to go 2 meals in arrears. That was the policy. Is that out the window now that everyone's free because nobody's paying for it anymore? How does that work?
They're, right, nobody has to, well, they have to pay if they're purchasing a la carte items. But they do not have to pay for the meals, there's no charge.
Yeah, so, I mean, but if they didn't have the money for the a la carte, I mean, you could refuse them and say, listen, just
Correct.
take a meal.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So that should be a non-issue this year.
Correct.
And apparently for the next, for the next 4 years, right? Because that's how long this is good for, right?
It is good for 4 years. We can opt out at any time if we feel it's not working.
And why would we ever think that it's not working?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But that's something that they give you that option.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Oh, we have one
Can
last.
someone go through the line twice and get 2 meals?
They can try, but it will pop up on the POS system, and it will say this student has already had a lunch. So he could get it if he wants to pay for it.
If he wants to pay for it. So a
Right.
big football player who just needs those extra carbs, he'd have to pay for that second meal.
Correct.
Or a girls' tennis player. Just
Or
saying.
volleyball.
Or volleyball.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. We are on item number 9 on the agenda, vote on WEA Unit A contract.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that you might have covered this while I was not here. The timeline for the superintendent's evaluation, did you already cover that?
We did.
Okay. I'll catch up with you later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion to ratify the contract.
So move.
I have a motion, and is there a second?
Second. For
I
discussion.
think I'm going to wait for Mr. Sweat.
Okay.
If there's any discussion? No? I'll still wait for Mr. Sweat.
We're waiting for you, Jeff.
No, I said no.
I know, but we're going to need a vote.
I will vote, I promise.
Okay. All right, so hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the WEA Unit A contract, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. Any abstentions? Passes 3-1-0. Moving on, superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting before, we shared the nutrition reimbursement rates that were a little off. They were wrong, so that's why we asked Mrs. Perry to please share that to make sure that we had it correct. I had a parent forum on Monday night. It was pretty well attended. I certainly appreciate everybody that attended and asked questions. Again, this is a work in progress. If any of our audience watching that have questions about transportation, please do not use the transportation link that is on the website, because it now is crazy with spam. And I've had offers to buy NFL jerseys, Reebok, et cetera, so please just email me directly, and then I will forward the email to whomever needs to answer your question. The PTA was gracious enough to postpone their September meeting so people could attend my forum, and we were so happy about their cooperation that we've offered to go to the PTA meeting in October, and I will be bringing food service folks with me on that night, October 20th, and we will be offering taste tests for parents of cafeteria food and breakfast food. So we're pretty excited about that, and we think people will really enjoy that. So I would urge people to come to PTA on October 20th, and that will be at Deacon's. The high school roof is in progress. The rocks are off, the skylights are out, it's being replaced, and we're making pretty good progress, and we know that we will be finished before the first snow flies, unless it comes early, and then we're all going to be taking a very deep breath. And that completes my report.
Any questions of the superintendent regarding her report? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is school committee reports. Anyone have any reports? Nothing. All right. Also on the agenda, under that agenda item is the mask voting delegate. I think we have to vote a voting delegate for this year. Is that correct? Yes.
It can be assigned.
Yeah, you don't have to take a vote, but somebody needs to be.
I can just make somebody by fiat of my one day as chair. Dr. Sylvia expressed support for Mr. Sweat if he's interested.
Thank you. I was on the resolutions committee, so I'm intimately familiar with the resolutions. I'm more than happy to either this evening or at another evening go over them before the Hyannis meeting so that I can get a consensus. Most of the resolutions are what I'll call slam dunks. I mean, they're pretty clear cut that we should be in favor of them. There's one that is mildly troubling, but I plan to go, and I'll be happy to represent the group, and I appreciate their confidence.
Yeah, I would have chosen you too. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and any member of the school committee can actually attend the meeting and be there. So, I mean, we just have one voting delegate. So if I agree, if we have an opportunity to discuss them here, and then Jeff goes, and anyone else who wants to show up there can.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other committee reports, we're on the last agenda item. Any other business? Oh.
They do ask for an alternate, just in case. Is there an alternate?
It would probably, you'd want.
Attending?
Well, that's the thing. Who's not attending?
You're all attending except Rhonda.
Except, I was gonna tell her it was her, but
So it could be any other.
I will assign it to Dr. Sylvia.
See,
he can be the alternate.
That'll teach him for
That's
not being
right.
here.
So moving on, any other business?
Oh, I have a story.
We have a story.
I do have a story. And this just speaks to our community and how gracious our community, the support that they're willing to give us. The other day I met with members of the Veterans Day Committee. And as I was sitting there listening and putting plans together, I thought, wouldn't it really be pretty cool if we could line Viking Drive with flags, and in front of our schools we put a number of flags in. And I thought, well, you know those little stick flags that you can put in the ground, and I thought, boy, how many veterans do we have in Wareham? they told me they thought we had about 1,800 veterans. So I thought, oh, 1,800 flags, that would really be something
Special.
special. So there's this thing on the internet, it's called GoFundMe. I thought, I'm going to try this. So with the help of Jamie, we created a little GoFundMe fundraiser and then put it out there, and we thought, okay, we're going to ask for $550 because when we looked online, we could get the flags, it would cost us about $550.
For 1,800 flags?
Yes, they're little.
The little ones.
And so I thought, okay, we're going to see, and we put it out there on Friday. By Saturday morning, around 9 o'clock, we had surpassed our goal, raised the money, and now we have the flags ordered, and so we're going to have flags lining Viking Drive in front of the schools to signify all the wonderful help that our veterans and have memory of them. So thank you to the community for helping, and it just speaks of your passion and how supportive you are.
That's awesome.
Isn't that
Yeah,
cool?
that's great.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Svet?
On another, what I'll call positive note, I'm not sure it's quite as positive as our superintendent's story, but literally today, as I was walking my dog, I was approached by a member of the Board of Health. And at a meeting, it may have even been today, they were discussing a new effort to really, for once and for all, clean up Wareham. One of the members of the Board of Health had gone to New York City and was amazed at the extent to which the biggest city in the country is clean now. And they thought, if New York City can do it, Wareham can do it. And this member was hoping that the education community would be supportive of this effort because it will take, obviously, an entire community to make this happen. And I volunteered myself, but I suspected that our students, as well as our faculty and members of the school committee, would also be solidly behind this. So I will report back as this gathers some steam, hopefully.
Very good. Anyone else?
That, by the way, is the kind of thing that Key Club does.
National Honor Society, Code Club, Key Club, they'd all jump at the opportunity. Except it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing commitment.
Well, their community service is ongoing.
All good.
ROTC?
There are any number of people who would see this as a real positive effort.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I guess we're adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.